They told me not to make this video, or else I'll be neutralized. So I may see that as a warning. I see that as an invitation. Allow me to reply.
Passage of this law is not less than an outright declaration of war against the American people by the military connected power elite.
Nobody believes you anymore.
We cannot rely on the Assad regime.
На разных этапах истории нашего государства
Que nuestras poblaciones han decidido recurrir.
You have the rise of communists and fascists.
He had been aiming to open an investigation into the country's president.
Russian cargo trucks apparently have returned to Russia.
Eres un cobarde si no vences el miedo.
Only religion that acts like the mafia.
Buonasera.
In 1555, the great prophet Nostradamus predicted that the world was going to end in a worldwide war. 400 years later, the signs of his predictions are already becoming visible. With more than 16,000 active nuclear weapons, more than 190 countries ready for combat, and more than 40 armed conflicts in the world, all it'll take is a spark. Listen carefully. It takes a single bullet to kill a person, a single thought to create an idea, a single man to end the world as we know it. We all know that much, but what about the push that activates the trigger? What does it take to stop it? Hello, I'm a Venezuelan student. Can you keep a secret? Me neither. That's why we're here. I'm here to tell you a story, and like every story, this too has a middle, a beginning, and an end. However, the most shocking thing about this story is not the structure of its narrative, but how little you know of it, and how much it connects back to your life. The world we live in is made up of two sides, those who have control and those who want control. Everyone else is just a pawn of the game. Those who have control will do anything to maintain it, and those who want it will do anything to gain it. The thing you may not know is that the key that could break the balance between these two forces lies within the boundaries of a single nation. When typed into the web, pictures of gorgeous women and beautiful landscapes fill the screen. However, if you dig deeper, you'll discover that behind all this beauty lies a secret whose content has never been shared. Perhaps you've heard of this nation. Perhaps you've seen videos of what's happening. Perhaps you think you have a really good idea what's going on. But I'm here to tell you, you don't. Get ready to witness the biggest misconception of the 21st century, and the one dirty little secret that could end the world as we know it. Let's begin.
Meet Venezuela, a country where statistics reveal that before this video is over, someone will die. A country where seeing students get tortured is as common as texting. A country where people have to do 4-hour-long lines just to buy toilet paper. A country where people use Twitter to find medicine. A country where people use Facebook to learn the news. A country where making a joke about the government means getting arrested. A country where looking at the wrong person means death by nightfall. A country where talking about the last time you got robbed is an icebreaker. A country that has more casualties in times of peace than the United States does in times of war. A country where being alive is a privilege. Let's pretend you're living in this country. Let's pretend you can't get out. Imagine you're stuck there for the rest of your life. What would you do? Would you assimilate? Or would you fight the system? While you're thinking about it, they already gave their answer. On February 12th, 2014, the students of Venezuela said, "I had enough." They raised their voices and stood up in behalf of the nation. They took it to the streets to demand freedom, to demand justice, to demand compassion, to demand a change. They filled the streets of every major city in the nation and walked with the same motto, a very simple one: freedom. They did so peacefully. They did so respectfully. They did so with the hopes that they could touch the government's heart. But instead, they were met with bullets, with torture, with murder. Several people were injured by the hand of the government's forces. But if that wasn't enough, 2 students were killed that very day. Since we're little, we're taught to run away from fights we can't win, to always know when to back down. These students didn't get that memo. Instead, they went head-on to fight against their own Goliath.
Tense times in Venezuela.
We begin in Venezuela, where the government is stepping up efforts to quell.
Protests have turned deadly.
2 young Venezuelans died.
And 5 people have died.
At least 8 people have been killed,
At least 15 people have died in those protests.
with 28 people having been killed.
Queremos tumbar al régimen. Nosotros queremos destruir es la mentira.
Maybe looking at Ukraine right now. But this is what's happening in Venezuela.
Carl, this picture, do we know exactly what happened that led to this young woman's death?
Her name, Genesis Carmona.
Carmona is the second beauty queen to die in Venezuela.
If I can, I will march with them because she died marching.
Whenever they find a person thought to be a protester, they kill them without a trial.
Somos estudiantes, no tenemos armas. Esto es lo único que tenemos. Y esto.
Young people really have been at the forefront of these 2-week-old protests.
They went to the streets with a different tone, a more rebellious one. They went prepared to give their all for freedom, ready to give their lives to fight for something they have never even witnessed with their own eyes. Something very abstract, but something they believed in dearly, something most of us take for granted, and something that could soon be expired for the rest of the world. Using sticks and stones against tear gas and bullets, using megaphones and signs against repression and brutality, using Facebook and Twitter against stations and networks, using the streets against oppression, they stood their ground. With a nationwide media blackout, their only form of communication became apps like Zello and other social media sites throughout the web, though these two were taken down for a few days by the government's intelligence force. Moreover, several news networks were silenced for broadcasting anything that had to do with the protests.
And 3 armed men then proceeded to rob our crew of all the camera gear, all the transmission gear as well.
Internet service is being shut down in cities.
Our permit to work as a journalist in Venezuela has been revoked immediately.
NTN 24, que hasta este momento ha estado en el 725 de DirecTV en Venezuela, pareciera que no.
While the nation fell to pieces and the students were butchered in the streets, the rest of the population was left in the dark. Regardless, that didn't stop the fire in these students, nor their determination to stand up for what they believe in.
Protesters flood the streets, rallying under the same call: freedom.
However, the death toll has then increased to 43, and every day, more and more students are arrested, tortured, kidnapped, and killed, just for saying what's on their minds. For thinking differently, for being different, for fighting back. But for those of us who aren't sentimental, why should we freaking care? This little country known as Venezuela is the country with the biggest reserves of oil in the world. Whoever controls this nation controls an oil network of about $30 trillion. That's enough money to pay the collective national defense budget of every single nation in the world combined. 17 times. In addition to its oil, this nation possesses the second largest natural gas reserves in the Americas. With all of this in mind, we shouldn't be surprised to see this nation thrive at a higher level than most oil-producing nations around the globe. However, this is hardly the case. Venezuela's recession makes it the worst performing economy in the hemisphere, and the government's rapacious fiscal deficit is feeding what is now the world's highest inflation rate. In addition to its economic crisis, Venezuela is ranked as the second country with most murders in the world, and its capital is currently regarded as the second most dangerous city in the entire planet. To put it in perspective, before you finish taking a shower, another Venezuelan will be killed. That's a mathematical fact. So how is it that the country, with arguably the best chances to thrive in the entire world, is considered the worst country in the entire planet? The answer is disturbing. As opposed to persuading the well-being of its citizens, this country follows a different agenda. An agenda that puts the rest of the world hostage, without many of us even knowing. In 1992, a man led a movement known as the MBR 200 and activated a scheme known by its codename Operation Zamora, a failed coup d'etat that left 14 soldiers dead and more than 143 civilian casualties. 7 years later, this man would rise up to become the next president of Venezuela. In 1999, he took control of the nation with promises of change, freedom, and stability, in direct contrast with our dark past. Known as probably the best political public speaker before President Obama, and believed to be the most charismatic man of his time, Hugo Chavez won the hearts of thousands of loyal followers and led the way for a new era. However, no one could predict the storm that would follow. No one saw the big picture. No one but this man.
Uno de nosotros será presidente y aquel que sea electo dejará una huella imborrable en los próximos 15 años.
Though Venezuela has more than enough resources to thrive, its richness ends up going somewhere else, for this nation serves not its people, but a different master. As opposed to the classic people versus government showdowns that happen around the world, Venezuela has two extra players playing this game. Known as the crucible of crime, terrorism, and anti-Western defiance, Venezuela is the single most important nation in the eyes of these guys. Perhaps one of the most brilliant minds in the hemisphere and the most sinister in the world. the Castros, the brothers who have successfully survived more than 500 assassination attempts by the CIA and brought the island of Cuba to its knees for more than 5 decades, under international watch, under radical resistance, under direct American defiance. And thus, we meet the first extra player of this conflict, the Cuban Empire.
Cuba's expertise is in control, and that's what Chavez needs right now. Cuba needs Venezuela, Venezuela needs Cuba, and Cubans need the oil.
As of 1999, Fidel Castro officially became Chavez's mentor. From then on, every economic, social, and political decision Venezuela underwent was first assessed and approved by the Castros. The nation of Cuba is now known by many among the most influential communist countries in the world, with more than 9 armed nations following its every footstep after pledging loyalty to the island. They are, after all, the legacy of a nightmare. The legacy of a ghost that once assumed defeat, but is now gaining strength and power, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. What are they trying to achieve? What every entity wants. Control. To gain enough power to be able to force their political ideology upon the rest of the world. With more and more allies joining in, their plans of turning South America into their first trophy could soon become a reality, giving them the leverage and political flexibility they need to move on to their next targets, enabling them to force their ideologies upon nations throughout the region and expand their control over the globe. As Cuba works as the mastermind of this operation, Venezuela is used as their personal cattle. Each year, Venezuela provides subsidies and irregular oil benefits to Cuba, which if added up, experts estimate their cost to be around $9.4 billion annually. This amount of aid is 2 times greater than that of the Soviet Union to the island during the Cold War. Without this aid, Cuba's economy would collapse, as would its influence around the world. Each year, more and more countries join the free giveaway of indispensable resources, earning a steady income from Venezuela's massive reserves in exchange for their loyalty and political affiliation to Cuba. What's holding them together? An ideology. What's keeping them together? A common enemy. A hatred that has burned within the structure of modern society since the fall of the Soviet Union. Each decade, more and more governments are built and financed by the Castros. And as Cuba's influence expands, so does the uncertainties of the people caught in the middle. Even the most dangerous countries and organizations benefit from disagreement. As for them, the enemy of their enemy is their friend. Iran and North Korea are a few examples of the danger of this alliance, as experts believe Venezuela has given enormous quantities of uranium to Iran for its nuclear program. Radical entities, like the notorious terrorist group Hezbollah, have settled in this nation and have been publicly aided by the Venezuelan government. Drug guerrillas, like the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, better known as La FARC, the most notorious guerrilla in South America and the most dangerous in Colombia, have been linked back to Venezuelan officials, as Venezuela provides them with weapons, shelter, and resources that are used to carry out operations in direct defiance of the Vienna Convention of 1988. In other words, the biggest drug cartel in the world is not a cartel, it's the Venezuelan government.
Diplomat accused the Venezuelan government of close ties to Colombian rebels.
Colombia has in the past accused Venezuela's government of sheltering drug traffickers.
Every flight that is bearing cocaine or other drugs is coming from Venezuela.
People believe that Hezbollah and some other of these terrorist organizations may actually be working with groups like the FARC.
Hugo Chavez's Venezuela actively supports the FARC.
Al-Qaeda basically charges for the passage of the drugs through their territory.
Hezbollah seems to be operating openly and fearlessly in Venezuela.
Office of Foreign Assets Control found troubling ties between a Venezuelan diplomat and Hezbollah.
Let me get this straight. A specially designated global terrorist is a high-ranking Venezuelan diplomat.
A story that really reads like a spy novel. It centers around a regular commercial flight between Tehran and Caracas, Venezuela.
Among the passengers was a suspect in the plot to bomb New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport.
Yet Iran is controlling this factory on Venezuelan soil,
actually close to that uranium deposit.
Though Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and Hugo Chavez differ in many ways, they share a common enemy.
This brings us to the second extra player of this game, and perhaps the most petrifying of them all. Behold, the colectivos.
¿Qué son los colectivos?
Que los colectivos. They're called colectivos.
Los colectivos.
With the aid of censorship and propaganda, there is a dangerous minority that actually supports the Venezuelan government. Led by the lies of the government's controlled media, the patriotism of this group has been compared to that of the Germans during the Nazi movement. This group of people idolizes the government. For them, politics is the highest hierarchy in society, even higher than religion. And many have publicly stated that they will give and take lives if necessary to defend the government that they call their own. And they are not bluffing. This minority has created armed militia groups known as the colectivos, which have been linked back to Venezuelan officials, meaning they are financed by the Venezuelan government. But since they are not technically part of the government, they come and go as they please. Since little, they are trained and taught to use deadly force if anyone dares to challenge the so-called revolution. They loot, steal, beat, rape, and murder the students, and then disappear as if nothing has happened. Similarly of how the KKK operated back in the dark days of American history. This group, known as the colectivos, come and go like the wind. It is this group that has done the most damage to the students, both physically and psychologically, as they have the ability to spread injustice, pain, and fear with impunity. These three players joined forces to fight against these students, who are virtually all alone. And thus, we are left to witness a vicious 3 versus 1 showdown. A nation of students, alone against 3 powerful entities, 2 regimes, and 1 man's hatred. The worst part is that these students are fighting them, all on their own. Even their political allies turned their backs on them. Leopoldo Lopez, one of the only politicians at the time who had the courage to stand up to defend the students, has been rotting in jail for the past 12 months after the government issued a warrant for his arrest. On February 18th, 2014, Leopoldo Lopez turned himself in with the hopes of waking up the international community. From his jail cell, he wrote,
"I'd rather explain to my kids why I'm in prison than to explain to them why they have no country."
As he walked towards his imprisonment, more than 100,000 students walked along his side, showing their gratitude and their respect for his ultimate sacrifice. To this day, Leopoldo Lopez is still imprisoned, just for speaking out against injustice and for trying to defend these students, leaving his wife and 2 kids without a husband, without the father, and all of the students without a leader.
The 3 political prisoners, each of whom embody Mandela's courage and commitment and who are heroic role models in their own right, including Venezuelan opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez, imprisoned for his advocacy of democratic reform.
Like him, there are more than 40 political prisoners arrested and wanted for having the courage to speak out against oppression. But even that number is overshadowed by the amount of students that have been arrested since that epic February 12th. Their crimes? Thinking differently. Their sin? Fighting back. Now, drug cartels, criminals, and terrorists from all over the world use South America as their personal haven and can now carry out operations around the globe. Operations that affect the whole world every single day, while still being protected by the political shield of this nation. All of this has been possible thanks to the dismantling of this nation's political structure and massive resources. And this dismantling has been possible thanks to the insidiousness and charisma of this man. However, the one thing the Castros never imagined would happen, eventually happened.
We're going to start off today with some breaking news from Venezuela. We just got word that Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez has died.
The 58-year-old leader succumbed to cancer this afternoon.
He suffered a series of health complications following his return from cancer treatment in Cuba.
According to The Week, the Venezuelan leader had already chosen Maduro as his successor.
And just then, the most crucial piece in their plans was now vulnerable. Their most secure dependency was now fragile. A nation tied down by one man was now awakening for the first time. Now, Nicolás Maduro holds the chains of this nation, and he isn't planning on breaking them anytime soon. These students have been fighting the weight of the underground world for more than a whole year, yet they kept fighting. They fight night and day, giving all the glory not to their names, but to a mask made of plastic. A mask that will bring them no profit, but still, they wear it as a symbol of courage, as a symbol of noble defiance. And it is this defiance that has become the single biggest threat to the underground world of criminals and fascism. As you can probably tell by now, these students aren't just getting killed for Maduro's entertainment. They're a threat to the stability of this regime. Therefore, they pose a threat to the underground networks of terrorists and cartels. And as long as they're breathing, these entities will do anything to protect their only haven. You may be wondering, how has this country been able to get away with something like this for so long? But the answer to that question is not that complex. In the world we live in, where there is money, there's a way. To retain their power on a global scale, this government knows they must pretend to play by the rules on the international stage. And thus, this government has invested billions to create a campaign that portrays their political system as free and democratic. However, countless of independent experts and organizations have condemned the Venezuelan electoral process as one of the shadiest in the hemisphere, and many studies and investigations have accused the Venezuelan government of committing fraud on every major election. But regardless of all these claims, one peculiar organization still stands strong and endorses the Venezuelan electoral process to this day. It is this organization that has given the Venezuelan government the leverage they need on the international stage. This organization is no other than the Carter Center.
I would say that the election process in Venezuela is the best in the world.
What many people don't know is that this organization is as shady as the American banking system. This organization is sustained by the heavy donations of several regimes from the Middle East, regimes that share strong political ties to the Venezuelan government. Calling this organization biased is an understatement. Even the family of the now dead terrorist Osama bin Laden has donated over $1 million to this organization, making their affiliations and motives a bit suspicious, to say the least. As a result, Venezuela enjoys the protections and benefits of most democratic nations, while maintaining its people hostage under a totalitarian anti-American agenda that has broken more conventions than any other nation in the world. But regardless of how many violations they commit, in their books, they're untouchable.
Con transparencia total, privada.
A Satisfy survey revealed that most people don't see Venezuela as a hostile nation. In fact, many people didn't even know of this nation's existence. This unawareness has given the government enough room to maneuver with little international resistance, allowing their agenda to go unchallenged, and thus permitting dangerous coalitions to be formed, therefore leaving the prey vulnerable to the predators. What do all the conflicts in the world have in common? Victims. There's always collateral damage in the quest for power, be it capitalist or socialist, left or right, liberal or conservative. Everyone wants control. Everyone wants power to promote their own agendas, but some want power for the sake of the game. And it is the people caught in the middle that suffer from this dreadful game. Many don't know what really goes down in this nation, and it's the Venezuelan students that pay for our ignorance. This so-called democratic government, though claiming it stands for justice and equality, has a different agenda to fulfill, one that is affecting the world we all live in, affecting your past, affecting your present, and potentially affecting your future. We can't let these students do our fighting for us, not when the stakes are that high, not when the outcome of this fight could potentially affect the lives of millions of people around the world. Just imagine the ripple effect that the fall of the Venezuelan regime would bring to the underground world. The fate of the lawless and the corrupt rests on whatever happens in Venezuela, and on who controls the cattle. Those who lurk underneath will soon have the necessary tools to rise, and when that happens, the rest of the world will then feel their wrath. That is, unless we do something about it. No society wants us to be free, because independent souls are a liability to those in control and to those in the pursuit of it. And as each side fights for power, we become nothing but pieces to control. As long as you keep up with the charade, you'll be left alone. But as soon as you defy the system and break free, you become dangerous to them. You become their enemy, and thus, you are treated accordingly. However, the most amazing thing is not how much power the system has. The most amazing thing is how little they care. Even after knowing the risks of fighting the system, even after knowing the consequences of defiance, and even after so much indifference from the international community, this next generation took a stand. Many people sit back and choose between the lesser of two evils. These students chose neither. Instead, they fight to create their own path, their own future. A future where the word freedom actually means something. They rose to the challenge and devoted their souls to the streets, their hearts to freedom, and they're here to stay. So now I ask, why do we even go to school? What's the point of studying history when you yourself are not a part of it? What's the point of reading books about Martin Luther King and Gandhi when you have to ask for permission to go to the bathroom? Being a student doesn't mean following the rules. It means finding meaning behind them. It means to be creative. It means to discover. It means to let your imagination take over and take you to places you've never seen before. It means to be free. People spend their lives wondering what they would give for freedom. These students already gave their answer. They're fighting for their lives, with their lives. A student anywhere is a student everywhere. It doesn't matter where you're from, we're all headed the same way. We are the future, and that's why we have to have each other's back. Therefore, we need to send a message that if someone messes with one student, they mess with all the students in the world. That we'll be there to protect them, that we'll be there to back them up. A message so simple, it'll resonate in every corner of the world. These kids are fighting for something bigger than their own. They're fighting for the fate of our future, but they're fighting it all on their own. We need to show them that they are not alone in this fight, because at the end of the day, whether or not you went to school, we're all humans. We're all learners. We're all teachers. We're all students. Regardless of your political affiliation, no human deserves to be killed just for saying what's on their mind. The world should not be about choosing the lesser evil, but about choosing the greater good. If you look at any conflict in the world, there is only one true victim. It's not the Israeli government. It's not the Palestinian government. It's the people caught in the middle. It's Israeli children killed by rockets. It's Palestinian women killed by drones. It's time to stop choosing sides and time to stand behind the victims, the real victims. These students were dragged into a conflict without their consent, and after 16 years of being pawns in a battle between two foreign forces, they have awoken. The underdogs have entered the battlefield and they won't back down without a fight. So back to the beginning. It takes a single bullet to end a dream. But what about the push that activates a trigger? What does it take to stop it? Perhaps the answer is simpler than you think. Perhaps all it takes is a click. If you're against oppression, if you're against tyranny, if you're against censorship, we humbly ask you to join our movement. We ask you to participate in our worldwide internet undertaking to bring attention to the biggest misconception of the century. Our goals are simple: to pressure the United Nations into officially labeling Venezuela for what it is, a dictatorship. To make nations around the world follow through sanctions toward high-ranking Venezuelan officials for their crimes against humanity in direct violation of the ICCPR Convention. But our most important goal is to get them home, and you play a big part in this mission. All your power lies one click away. If you're against censorship and oppression, we invite you to put this image as your profile picture, a screen with no signal. We invite you to be part of the biggest internet movement in the history of humanity, so that when every single person in the world with access to Facebook or Twitter logs in, all they see is this picture. So that when people from anywhere and everywhere around the globe log in, all they notice is how all their friends and families have this weird image as their profile. So that when the world logs in, all they see is this picture spreading throughout the web, like wildfire. Let this be the picture that lights a light into the darkest of places. Let this be the picture that creates consciousness in the closest of minds. Let this be the picture that saves their lives. Put this on your Facebook, Twitter, and other social media accounts to show your support for the Venezuelan students and to show your condemnation towards media censorship, corruption, and oppression. It's not much, but it's a first step to show these students that we have their backs and to show the world that we are not afraid to stand up against oppression. When putting this picture, you're not only changing your profile, you're taking a stand. We invite you to write on the description the hashtag SOS Venezuela and the hashtag Free Our Students. And if you're a student or know a student in places like Mexico, Hong Kong, and even the US, places where students struggle every day to make their voices heard, we welcome you to make this movement yours and invite you to add any hashtags that best benefits your movement.
It is up to you to write the ending of the story. Up to you to make a change. If you want to lend the Venezuelan students your voice, share this video as much as you possibly can and put this image in honor of their noble defiance as a symbol of support to their just cause, as a declaration of war against censorship and oppression. When the media becomes an accomplice of evil, it is up to us to raise our voices. These students are struggling with no means to speak their minds. They are sending an SOS to the world with the hopes that someone will listen. It's time to let them know that we hear them. They're fighting the weight of the most notorious and dangerous groups in the world, all by themselves. It's time to lend them a hand. It's time to tip the balance in their favor. It's time to enter the battlefield. Be their voice. Be our voice. Share this video and please let the world know of what's really happening in the once upon a time beautiful country of Venezuela. And let them know that today the world stopped turning a blind eye and was brave enough to take a stand, one click at a time. These are our students. They need you. We need you.
My name is Leo Manzari.
My name is Camila Callere.
My name is Nathaniel Charles.
Hi, I'm Olivia.
I'm Lenny Alcid. I'm Jake. I'm Luke.
Soy Andrea Leon. Hi, my name is Jordan and I'm from Hawaii. I'm from San Juan, Puerto Rico.
I'm from England.
I'm from South Korea.
Soy de Buenos Aires, Argentina.
I'm from Japan. We are from the United States.
Soy italiano. Soy de Mexico. I'm from Turkey.
I'm from the Philippines and I support the Venezuelan students.
I support the Venezuelan students.
I support the Venezuelan students.
E anch'io supporto gli studenti del Venezuela.
Je supporte les étudiants du Venezuela. Yo apoyo a los estudiantes venezolanos. Venezuela has in their
We support the Venezuelan cause.
Und wir unterstützen die Studenten aus Venezuela.
And we stand with the Venezuelan students. It's time.
This is David against Goliath. No pierdan la esperanza, no están solos.
Venezuela,
¡Arriba la libertad! ¡Viva Venezuela libre de violencia!
We are here, and as you struggle to make your dreams happen, to live the impossible, we're thinking of you tonight. And this is